Why Benefit Dinner is just around the corner. And then I thought, not Daniel Hope again. And then I thought, all right, Arcadian Wild is performing. I'm there. And I am a big fan of the Arcadian Wild, and was glad to see them here tonight. Fan of the Tennessee Children's Home as well. Grateful to be here, and even more grateful that you all are here this evening. It is truly mind-boggling to attempt to contemplate all the past events that have resulted in our being in this place for this purpose tonight. Of all the countless prerequisites, I think there are two events without which we would almost certainly not be in this place for this purpose tonight. And the first of those events is the appearing of the Word in the flesh, Jesus Christ, Son of God from heaven, born like each of us, as a helpless baby, born in Bethlehem to Mary and Joseph. And after he grew through childhood and adolescence, grew into adulthood, this same Jesus is the one who said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them." And he blessed them. Without Jesus, and without Jesus' love for humanity in our vulnerability, we would not be in this place for this purpose tonight. And the second event without which we wouldn't be here tonight is an event that occurred 106 years ago, I believe, in Columbia, Tennessee, just south of here. That's when 3 kids, the Scotton children, were tragically orphaned. And it's also when God's people in that town stepped into their lives as the hands and feet of Jesus and began to provide for their needs. And it was out of that act of pure religion that the Tennessee Orphan Home was brought into existence. And since that time, this organization that we know of as the Tennessee Children's Home, since that time, this organization has served over 20,000 young people in similar situations. We may look back over all of those years and all of the individuals whose lives have been touched, and we may wonder, how have they done it? How did they do it? Well, for starters, as those of us who have been entrusted with the care of children or grandchildren could testify, they would not be able to do what they do without money. Raising kids is not cheap. The USDA estimates that to raise a child today to the age of 18 requires an estimate of $245,000 to do that. Now, keep in mind, college tuition and inflation are added onto that figure. Keep in mind as well, that's just one child. The Tennessee Children's Home serves around 200 children every single year. In order to provide that care for that many young people requires a substantial financial commitment. In fact, the annual operating budget for the Tennessee Children's Home is around $4.5 million. That's the operational budget. That takes care of things like providing 600 meals every day, providing clothing, providing housing, hiring residential counselors or house parents. It involves things like staffing and funding 3 schools on 3 campuses across the state. Now, in addition to all the operating expenses, you've also got the occasional need to expand facilities or build additional school buildings, or maybe from time to time renovate existing facilities. And to meet some of these needs, last year the Children's Home launched a capital campaign. Some of you are well aware of that. The goal is to raise $6 million to meet a lot of these expansion needs. This is above and beyond the annual operating expenses of And I'm pleased to say that in the last year, they've already achieved a third of that goal. They've received approximately $2 million. And with those funds, they've been able to build already 2 houses and a school building on the Knoxville campus in East Tennessee. Now, in addition to that exciting news about the capital campaign, there's another bit of news that many of you may be aware of as well with regard to the Spring Hill campus just south of here. In a news release that came out, I think it was less than a month ago, it was made public about some talks that the city of Spring Hill, the city planners, and some developers are engaged in with Tennessee Children's Home. And the city of Spring Hill is thinking about purchasing that campus and developing it into a town square for Spring Hill, with the courthouse and amphitheater and just a great place, the heart of that community, which that's exciting for the people of Spring Hill. It's also exciting for the Children's Home as well, because if these talks materialize, what that's going to mean is that the Children's Home will be able to, with the sale of that campus, relocate just a few miles away to property I believe they already have and build a brand new campus on that site. Now that's separate from everything we've talked, separate from the capital campaign, and separate from the annual operating expenses. But it's just an exciting new development in this moment for the Tennessee Children's Home. So there's a lot of great things that go on every single day through the work of this great organization. And in order for this organization to continue to provide this care for another 100 years or more, it's going to require continued financial commitments from especially the people of God. There's a lot of ways we can support the Children's Home. We can support them through our prayers, adding them to our prayer list, and asking God to provide for their every good work. Your presence here tonight at this dinner is a huge blessing to this organization as well, and it's one that I know they don't take lightly, and they appreciate so much your support. Another way you can support the Children's Home is by going back to your local congregation and asking the leaders of that congregation to consider supporting the Children's Home. They can do that in a lot of ways, through a food drive to help offset operating expenses. They can do that through the Coin Can Project, through a one-time donation, a Fifth Sunday contribution. They can do that through actually including the Children's Home in their 2016 budget for missions or benevolence. You can also support the Children's Home by including them in your will, so that your lasting legacy can be a part of its lasting legacy. And all the estate contributions go directly into endowment. Just to give you an idea of how important the endowment fund is for the Tennessee Children's Home, in the last 95 years, since 1920, the endowment fund, the interest through the endowment fund, it's been able to provide some $20 to $25 million for the Children's Home. And that has been used for the perpetuation of the operation, and it's also been used above and beyond that to fund other good works around the world. For example, most recently in 2008, Tennessee Children's Home built a home for street children in Belo Horizonte, Brazil. And that was used, the funds from the endowment were used for that project. That's just an idea of how important that is. And probably the most important way that we can be a part of supporting the Children's Home is through considering being a hero of hope. And you may hear more about this as the night goes on, but through our individual contributions, whether that's a one-time gift, whether that's a monthly contributions, but to personally and individually support the Children's Home in that way. Now, that's a lot about the how of supporting the home, but I guess in some ways, really the more important issue is the why. Why should we consider supporting the Tennessee Children's Home? Why is that? After all, there's so many needs in our world. After all, there's so many good organizations doing so many good things to meet all of those needs in the world. After all, we can't support all of those organizations. So why should we consider supporting the Tennessee Children's Home? Now, this is a question that each individual will have to answer for himself or herself and measure his or her priorities against the priorities of the organization and all of that. I understand all of that, but I think for most of us in this room, as we go through those contemplations, there's probably a couple questions I would think most of us would really want to know that would figure in very prominently in our thought process. And one of those questions is this: how does this organization promote societal good? How does this organization promote societal good? And I think this is one of those questions that, like a lot of questions, can be answered with the counter question. The possible answer to this question is there a greater societal good than providing for our youth safe, supportive, Christian environments in which to receive care? Through the work of the Tennessee Children's Home, 200 or so young people every year have the privilege of experiencing that very environment. And the care that they receive is excellent. In fact, the state of Tennessee regards the Tennessee Children's Home as one of the top providers of child care in the state. The recidivism rate for similar organizations throughout this state is 150%, if I did my math correctly, 150% higher than the recidivism rate of those who go through Tennessee Children's Home. Tennessee Children's Home's recidivism rate is 10%, and the average across similar organizations is 25%. So maybe I did my math wrong. Now you know if I did or not. But it's a top provider, and this is one of the reasons why the state has, in recent years, asked the Tennessee Children's Home if there's any way they can expand what they do and provide this opportunity for even more young people that need this kind of environment in which to receive care. And that was some of the background for the capital campaign last year, to meet some of these needs of expansion, to build additional homes, to build additional school buildings in order to further promote societal good. I think that's a big question. This idea of societal good is something that we want to know as we're thinking about this. And I would also think that for most of us in this room, maybe the most important question that's on our minds is, how does this organization promote spiritual good? The state realizes this is a faith-based Christian organization, yet they do not prevent the house parents, residential counselors from sharing their faith with the young men in the program. They don't prohibit the home from taking the young men to church. I was at a church in West Tennessee and near one of the West Tennessee homes, and one of those churches where the young men were brought regularly. And I got to see that dynamic at work. And this year already, 30 of the young people in the care of Tennessee Children's Home have surrendered their lives to Christ in baptism. 30 this year. In the last 25 years, since 1990, there have been around 1,200 young people who have done the very same thing and who have obeyed the gospel through the work of those in the Tennessee Children's Home. And so I guess what I'm saying is this organization does even more than provide societal good. It promotes spiritual good. The work of the Tennessee Children's Home is impacting the earthly lives of these young people, but even more than that, it's impacting the eternal lives of many of these young people. And so while it is a benevolent work, it's also a mission work. And that's one of the ways that this organization promotes spiritual good. That I think there's even an additional way that this organization promotes spiritual good that Children's Home does not only promotes the spiritual good of its residents, but it also promotes the spiritual good of its supporters. And we may be thinking, well, what does my spiritual health have to do with my support of the Children's Home? And I would say simply this: God has always measured the spiritual health of His people according to the measure of love that His people extend to the most vulnerable in society. A group that Jesus would call the least. And so as I wrap up some of my comments for tonight, I just want to invite us all to listen and hear with fresh ears these inspired and inspiring words from Scripture. First is Isaiah 58. Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and He will say, Here am I. The words of Jesus from Matthew 25. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. James, the first chapter. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Thank you very much.
A new city hall, a new library, parking garages, a park, and other residential properties, as well as commercial properties, where people can live and work in Spring Hill and have a place to gather for park recreation, as well as for events, festivals, and those kind of things. And as I said, Mr. Bushman and David, we've got a team of Davids that are working very hard for us, and we're very excited about that. You may be thinking that if that property sells, all of our financial worries are way over. Well, that's not true. As Daniel so amply and adequately suggested, that money that we might gain from that is simply going to be reinvested at another location. We have existed over the years through the gifts of farms and estates that have helped us to have the facilities that we do have. And we're simply going to change the location of those funds and those gifts to a different location in Spring Hill. And the capital campaign is still going on so that other facilities can be built in other parts of the state. As we move forward, the question might be, well, what's going to happen to the money? Well, no money is going to be used from the sale of this property to help us with our day-to-day operations. You will still have to be involved with us in that process. Every year, we have to raise, through your generosity, over $4 million. $2 million of that comes from individuals and churches. We do get a stipend from the state for those children that are placed there with us by the state. All of those funds will be used to be reinvested in Spring Hill. That's the project. And when you stop and think about it, we're talking about 10 additional houses. The average cost is about $500,000 to build those houses. School buildings cost $1.5 million to $2 million. And in those school buildings,